I'm curious about what that's been like for you, because what this is episode 135 or something,
Yeah.
right? So you've been doing these conversations for a minute.
Yeah.
So I'm really curious what you've learned about yourself and just this work in trying to create real social change. What's been the top things that you've learned, and how has that changed how you do these conversations? Because I'm curious, I want to go back to the first couple and see how it's different now.
Yeah, actually, it hasn't changed that much. I'll be honest. Maybe it's because a lot of the way that I approach these conversations is related to my teaching practice. I've been a teacher since 2006. So I've had a lot of practice communicating with people, building relationships, and, understanding what gets people to open up and kind of being able to create the conditions and the environment to have that happen. So I just kind of use those skills, and in the race context, I think it's really important that, and it's actually funny because before we came on to the stream, you had mentioned that the book that you just wrote has a lot more of your personal story, and you're sharing a lot more than you typically have. For me, I have always led with my personal story. And the reason why is because what I like to do is to show people that everything I'm saying applies to me. It's universal. And I want to stick to more universal principles and just communicate those. So the way that I do it is because racism is so expansive and extensive and has such a long generational history. You find out about people, you learn about their lives, you learn about the way that they see the world. And then you start making, if you learn enough about race, you're able to make a connection between whatever it is that they're talking about and race. And so that's my strategy, basically. Yeah, is to just show them that it's not as far removed from their experience as they believe, and then kind of put people to a choice of okay, so what do you believe given that? A question that a lot of people is never even posed to them.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, that's good.
Yeah. But yeah, it all started from curiosity, brother. For me, somebody telling me I wasn't black, because I got good grades, because I didn't curse, because I wasn't in a gang, you name it, literally going down a bullet point list of why. And I was just flabbergasted. This happened when I was 6 years old. I wrote a poem about it. You can go watch the animation I commissioned to go along with it on my YouTube channel. It's called Contraband of Race War. And 6 years old, and I had already been told the difference between black and white. That's how it starts.
Yeah.
Thank you for
that's not the case for a lot of white folks, right? A lot of white folks, they're awakening to race or race consciousness, like you said, can happen much later because they don't have to necessarily address things like that when they're young, and their parents will keep them from having to address that.
Yeah, and there is a kind of inevitability if you're racialized as black, for sure, that something is going to happen. But also, it's not a guarantee. Recently I talked to someone on the show, racialized black man, DC native, and he really has only directly experienced racism in the last year. He had 3 different experiences. And so for him, in his perspective, racism is being, inflamed and things are getting worse. But these are his first direct experiences that he can perceive anyway. Right.
I was waiting for that part.
Yeah, I don't want to tell people about their lives, I try not to do that, but yes, for sure. And so it's just because perspective is so important in these conversations, I try to make sure that I lead with what is your perspective, what is your experience, and then, share my own experience and just see where we end up. That's pretty much why you're here, Dr. Jojo. It's because I want to see, because your career, you've already had a long and storied career in diversity, equity, and inclusion, and anti-racism work, I mean, I'm looking up to you, brother. And so I definitely want to hear about kind of, maybe you could tell the audience a little bit about your career path and like the work that you've been doing and,
Sure.
Culminating in this book that you just released.
Mhm. Well, it started when I was still in high school, actually, just with activism, right? And trying to address what I was seeing in school, what their teachers were teaching us, as opposed to what I was learning at home, and what I knew to be true in general, right? Even as a kid, there's some of these things that we learn that's like, that just doesn't sound right, you know? And I was that kid, you know, which teachers either love or hate, right? They don't always love the student that's like, wait, that doesn't sound right. Could I was that kid. And so, particularly in high school, I started to go to other schools. I used to talk to teachers about curriculum and, trying to address those things. And it started, and I think this story is in the book. I remember it being maybe third or fourth grade. I can't be sure of it, but it was in a history class, and we had been assigned to memorize some, supposed facts about the first, I think, dozen presidents. And I had seen some things and heard some things, and so I said, "That's interesting." So when I went home, I broke out my Encyclopedia Britannica, right, because there was no Google or anything at that time, and started looking up some things about these presidents and realized that the majority of them, the vast majority of them, were enslavers. Um, and I'd learned about that, and we, watched Roots as a family. And I'm a little kid, and I'm thinking, how are you telling me these are great people, right? And so that was the first time I remember really standing up in class, because I'm a shy person in general and did not want to speak in class. Um, but really like arguing with the teacher and getting sent to the vice principal's office for discipline, because I just couldn't accept her explanation that these were wonderful, amazing people that just were, that yes, they owned slaves, but it was that time, that it was just a product of the time. And I'd already learned about John Brown and a few of the other abolitionists. And I'm like, no, not everybody was doing that. Not everybody was okay with that. So even at that age, I was starting my own little budding activism, getting in trouble. But the career started probably after high school and then into college, when I was leading protests and starting organizations on campus and things like that, until my college internship was with the Defense Department's Equal Opportunity Management Institute, uh, which is sort of the military's, I guess, academic institution where they train equal opportunity and equal employment opportunity personnel. And I realized, wow, this is an actual profession, right? I can do this like all day, every day. And so I started to try to learn from those folks, and so that sort of guided my education. Beyond that, it was the first time I thought about going to graduate school. I ended up going to Florida A&M University to get my doctorate and to really focus my efforts in schools, because that's where I understood the problems to be at least partially stemming from. And that sort of led to a career in doing this work in higher education.
Nice. Yeah, as an educator myself, of almost 20 years coming up soon here, I definitely hear you about that. Thanks for watching. For access to the full-length conversation and all of the 2-hour-long unedited conversations that I've had on race, click the support link in the description below. Thanks for your support, and see you next time.